Dawn arrives slowly over the far reaches of the southern Middle East. At first, there is only darkness stretched across an endless sea of stone. Then, somewhere beyond the jagged horizon, the sun begins its silent ascent. Light spills cautiously over the desert, touching the highest ridges first, painting the cliffs in tones of copper and fire. This is the domain of the Negev Desert, a land sculpted by wind, time, and relentless heat. From above, the terrain appears almost alien. Vast plateaus collapse into enormous craters. Ancient riverbeds twist like fossilized snakes through valleys of broken rock. Nothing seems to move. Nothing seems to live. But the desert is patient. As the sun rises higher, the temperature begins its daily climb. Shadows shrink. The air shimmers with heat, bending light into bright mirages that ripple across the ground like water that does not exist. The wind slips through narrow canyons, whispering over the sand. Grains of dust rise into the air, drifting slowly across the barren slopes. To an untrained eye, the Negev appears silent, empty, a place abandoned by life itself. Yet, hidden within the cracks of stone and the folds of the landscape, something stirs. A small figure briefly emerges along a distant ridge. It pauses, silhouetted against the burning sky, ears raised, body tense. For a moment, it observes the vastness stretching below before disappearing once more among the rocks. High above, another presence glides effortlessly through the morning air. Broad wings spread over rising thermal currents, circling in slow spirals as the desert warms below. The sky belongs to those who know how to ride the invisible rivers of heat. On the ground, the stillness continues to fracture. Small tracks cross the sand. Fresh marks appear where none existed hours before. Beneath the surface, hidden tunnels weave through the soil. Under the stones, claws grip the earth, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Because in a place like this, survival demands patience. Every creature here lives on the edge of a knife, balancing hunger, heat, and thirst in one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. Day after day, season after season, for millions of years, and yet, against all odds, life persists. In this harsh wilderness, every movement matters. Every drop of water is precious. Every shadow may conceal either refuge or danger. This is not an empty land. It is a battlefield of survival. A hidden world where predators stalk the silence, prey vanish among the rocks, and the rhythms of life unfold under a merciless sun. Welcome to the Negev Desert, one of the harshest wild territories on Earth. In the Negev, survival begins with the sun. By midday, the desert has transformed. The gentle morning light has hardened into a blazing furnace. Temperatures exceed 40 degrees Celsius, baking the rocky ground until the air itself seems to tremble. For creatures exposed to the open desert, every second under the sun carries a cost. But the heat is only half the challenge. When darkness falls, the desert changes again. The warm winds fade, and the temperature plummets. By midnight, the same landscape that burned under daylight can become intensely cold. Life here must endure both extremes, scorching heat and freezing nights, within the span of a single day. Water, the currency of survival across the planet, is almost completely absent. Rain may fall only a few times each year. When it comes, it arrives suddenly and violently, rushing through dry riverbeds before vanishing into the thirsty earth. For most animals of the Negev, waiting for rain is not an option. They must extract moisture from seeds, roots, insects, and from the bodies of other animals. In a land where water is scarce, every living being becomes part of a delicate balance between hunter and prey. Along the edge of a rocky ridge, a small predator moves with silent precision. Its body stays low to the ground as it navigates the maze of stones, nose pressed to the sand. Beneath the surface, something has been moving during the night, leaving faint trails that only an expert hunter can read. Suddenly, it stops. For several seconds, nothing happens. The desert seems frozen in place. Then, the sand erupts. A blur of fur and claws lunges forward, digging frantically as a tiny rodent bursts from its burrow, racing across the open terrain in a desperate dash for safety. The hunt lasts only seconds. Elsewhere, survival takes a different form. High above the valley floor, where jagged cliffs rise like fortress walls, another species has mastered a completely different strategy. Sure-footed silhouettes move effortlessly along near-vertical rock faces, traversing ledges that seem impossibly narrow. Every step is careful, every movement deliberate. Up here, gravity itself becomes protection. Few predators can follow these climbers. On the desert floor, the heat becomes unbearable. Even the smallest creatures feel its weight. A small lizard darts out from beneath a rock and runs across the sand, its legs moving so fast they barely touch the surface. Every second exposed to the scorching ground risks burning its delicate skin. Shade is only a few meters away. It reaches the shelter of a rock just in time. Across the Negev, these silent struggles unfold every hour of the day. Predators searching, prey hiding. Every creature testing the limits of endurance in a landscape that offers no mercy. And yet, despite the heat, the thirst, and the constant threat of death, the desert is far from empty. Because here, against all scientific expectation, life does not merely survive, it thrives. From above, the Negev appears as a vast geological tapestry, a landscape shaped not by gentle forces, but by millions of years of relentless erosion. Stretching across more than half of southern Israel, the Negev Desert covers nearly 13,000 square kilometers of rugged terrain. It is a land where mountains collapse into valleys, where cliffs rise abruptly from arid plains, and where ancient stone tells the story of a restless planet. But the Negev is not just any desert. Hidden within its rocky heart are formations that scarcely exist anywhere else on Earth. Among the most extraordinary is Maktesh Ramon, an immense natural crater stretching more than 40 kilometers in length and several kilometers in width. Unlike meteorite craters formed by cosmic impacts, this colossal basin was slowly carved by water and wind. Over millions of years, layers of softer rock eroded away, leaving behind a gigantic amphitheater of exposed geology. From its rim, the view is almost overwhelming. Layer upon layer of ancient rock curves downward into the vast basin below. The walls glow with shades of red, orange, and pale yellow, colors forged in prehistoric seas that long ago vanished from this land. Yet, even in such a dry place, water remains one of the most powerful forces shaping the desert. Across the Negev, narrow valleys wind between the mountains. These dry channels, known as wadis, appear lifeless for most of the year. Their cracked beds lie silent under the sun, scattered with stones polished by currents that no longer flow. But when rain finally arrives, everything changes. Storm clouds gather over distant highlands, releasing sudden torrents that rush downhill with explosive force. Within minutes, the quiet wadi transforms into a raging river. Walls of muddy water surge through the canyon, carrying branches, stones, and anything in their path. These flash floods are brief, often lasting only hours, before disappearing once again into the thirsty ground. Yet their impact is profound. They carve new paths through the rock, they redistribute nutrients, and most importantly, they leave behind precious pockets of moisture that sustain life long after the floodwaters have vanished. For thousands of years, humans have also followed these natural corridors. Long before modern borders existed, ancient traders crossed the Negev along winding desert routes. Caravans laden with spices, incense, and precious goods moved cautiously between distant civilizations, guided by the same valleys that wildlife still uses today. The desert has always been a place of passage, but beneath its vast apparent emptiness, something else exists. Because although these landscapes may seem silent and lifeless from afar, the truth is far more complex. Between cliffs and canyons, within the shadows of rocks and the shelter of dry riverbeds, countless small worlds unfold. These landscapes seem lifeless, yet every valley hides a small kingdom. As darkness settles over the desert, the Negev reveals one of its most elusive hunters. Among scattered rocks and winding ravines moves a predator rarely seen, yet deeply woven into the fragile balance of the desert. The Arabian wolf. Unlike the massive grey wolves of northern forests, the Arabian wolf is smaller, leaner, and perfectly adapted to the harsh conditions of the Middle East. Its body is built for endurance rather than brute strength. Its long legs carry it silently across great distances, while its pale, sandy coat blends almost perfectly with the desert terrain. In a place where prey is scarce and water even scarcer, survival demands efficiency. As the last traces of daylight fade, the wolf begins its nightly patrol. Its nose lowers to the ground, capturing a constant stream of scents. Every grain of sand carries information. The faint trail of a rodent that passed hours earlier, the distant presence of a herd moving through the valley, the warning scent of another predator. Nothing escapes its attention. Step by step, the wolf moves through narrow, rocky corridors carved by ancient floods. Its paws fall softly on the gravel, barely disturbing the silence. Even the smallest sound could betray its presence to potential prey. Hunting here is rarely dramatic. There are no large packs chasing across open plains, nor easy abundance of food. Instead, the Arabian wolf survives as an opportunist. Rodents, reptiles, birds, insects, anything edible can become a meal. At times it travels alone for many kilometers in a single night, following scent trails that wind through the desert like invisible threads. At other times, small family groups briefly cooperate to corner larger prey. Patience is the wolf's greatest weapon. A sudden movement breaks the stillness. Somewhere ahead, beneath the shelter of a stone, a small creature moves in the darkness. The wolf freezes instantly, ears tilted forward, body tense. For several long seconds, the desert holds its breath. Then, with explosive speed, the predator lunges forward. Dust scatters across the ground as claws dig into the sand. The chase lasts only a few frantic moments before silence returns once again to the valley. In the Negev, every successful hunt is precious. But even an apex predator cannot dominate such a harsh world alone. The wolf's survival depends entirely on the smaller animals that inhabit this desert. The countless creatures that burrow, climb, dig, and hide among the rocks. Without them, the hunter would disappear. Because in the Negev, the balance of life does not begin with the predator, but with the prey. Where the desert floor ends and the cliffs begin, another ruler of the Negev holds its territory. These steep canyon walls seem impossible to climb. Jagged rock faces rise hundreds of meters above the valley, their surfaces fractured and unstable. For most animals, they are natural barriers, vertical fortresses of stone. But for the Nubian ibex, they are home. The ibex is a master of gravity, built like a living climber. Its muscular legs and specialized hooves allow it to move across terrain that appears almost vertical. Each hoof is split into two flexible toes with rough, rubbery pads that grip even the smallest irregularities of the rock. From a distance, the animals appear almost weightless as they move along the cliffs, advancing confidently across ledges barely wider than a hand. Far below, the desert stretches in silence. A young ibex hesitates near the edge of a steep drop. Its legs tremble slightly as it studies the path ahead, a narrow ledge that winds around a crumbling wall of stone. A single misstep could send it tumbling into the canyon. But learning to climb is a matter of survival. Carefully, the young one places one hoof forward, then another. Small fragments of rock break loose and fall, bouncing down the cliff face before disappearing into the valley below. Within minutes, the young climber has crossed the dangerous ledge. Up here, the cliffs offer more than a home. They offer safety. Predators that roam the desert floor rarely attempt to follow the ibex to these heights. The steep walls create a natural refuge where the herd can rest, feed, and raise their young out of reach of many hunters. Groups of ibex move together across the slopes, forming loose social herds that shift throughout the day as individuals search for the desert's sparse vegetation. Their diet is surprisingly varied: grasses, shrubs, leaves, even thorny plants that few other herbivores can tolerate. But the herd's peace does not always last. During the breeding season, tension spreads among the males. Imposing individuals with enormous curved horns begin to challenge each other for dominance. These horns, which arc backward in dramatic curves, can grow more than a meter long. Two rivals face off on the rocky slope. For several seconds they remain completely still, muscles tense with anticipation. Then, with explosive force, they charge. The collision echoes loudly against the canyon walls as horn crashes against horn in a thunderous impact. Dust bursts into the air beneath their hooves as the combatants push and twist, each trying to overpower the other. Finally, one of the males yields, stepping away to avoid further injury. Dominance has been decided. Far below, hidden among the scattered rocks of the valley floor, another pair of eyes watches as the scene unfolds. The desert predator waits patiently in the shadows. Because even the kings of the cliffs must eventually descend to drink, feed, or cross open ground. And when they do, the balance between hunter and prey begins once more. As daylight fades and long shadows stretch across the desert floor, another hunter begins to move. Silent, patient, almost invisible against the fading colors of the rocks. This is the realm of the caracal, one of the most remarkable predators of the Negev. At first glance, the caracal appears almost delicate. Its body is sleek and compact, built for agility rather than brute strength. But beneath that graceful form lies a predator capable of astonishing bursts of speed and precision. Its most distinctive feature rises from the tips of its ears. Long black tufts of hair that sway gently as it moves through grass and stone. Scientists still debate the exact purpose of these elegant tufts. They may help with communication between individuals, or perhaps confuse prey in the final moments of a hunt. Whatever their function, they give the caracal an unmistakable silhouette. The desert is quiet now. A warm afternoon wind drifts through the valley as the feline lowers its body toward the ground. Each step is slow, deliberate. Muscles ripple beneath its fur as it advances among scattered rocks, using every shadow as cover. Unlike wolves that patrol vast distances across the Negev, the caracal relies on stealth. Its eyes remain fixed on a small clearing ahead. There, a group of birds has gathered on the ground, pecking among the dry grasses. They seem relaxed, unaware that danger is only a few meters away. The feline freezes. For several long seconds, nothing moves. Then the desert explodes. With explosive force, the caracal launches into the air. Its powerful hind legs propel it upward in an impressive leap, the body twisting mid-air with perfect balance. The birds burst into the sky in a frantic beating of wings, but one is not fast enough. In a single fluid motion, the caracal strikes its target in the air with a lightning-fast swipe of its paw. The entire hunt lasts less than 2 seconds. Such aerial ambushes are among the most extraordinary hunting behaviors in the animal kingdom. A skilled caracal can leap more than 3 meters high, striking birds in mid-flight before they even perceive the danger. However, birds are only one part of its varied diet. Rodents, reptiles, and small mammals also fall victim to the feline's stealthy approach. In the unpredictable desert environment, flexibility is the key to survival. The caracal must hunt any opportunity that presents itself. As darkness deepens over the Negev, the predator blends once more into the shadows, leaving the clearing silent once again. But the desert sky above is far from empty. For while some birds fall to the hunters below, countless others rule the vast open air above the desert, riding invisible currents that stretch across continents. In the Negev, the skies themselves are alive with wings. High above the silent desert floor, another world unfolds. While hunters stalk in the valleys below, the skies over the Negev belong to creatures that rarely flap their wings. Instead, they ride invisible rivers of rising air, gliding effortlessly across enormous distances. As the desert warms under the morning sun, columns of hot air begin to rise from the rocky ground. These powerful currents, known as thermals, spiral upward like giant elevators, carrying with them anything light enough to ride them. Few animals have mastered this aerial landscape as completely as vultures. Among the largest is the formidable griffon vulture, with a wingspan stretching nearly 3 meters. This enormous bird barely needs to flap its wings. Instead, it glides through the sky with slow, deliberate turns, scanning the desert far below. From these heights, the vulture's keen eyesight can detect the slightest sign of opportunity, the movement of predators, the gathering of other scavengers, or the motionless form of an animal that will never rise again. Soon, another figure joins the spiral. Smaller, but no less remarkable, the pale figure of an Egyptian vulture appears on the scene. Unlike its larger cousin, this species is famous not only for its sharp vision, but also for an unusual intelligence rarely seen among birds. Egyptian vultures have been observed using tools, lifting stones with their beaks and dropping them onto large eggs to break them. In a landscape where food can be scarce, such ingenuity offers a valuable advantage. Together, these aerial scavengers play a critical role in the desert ecosystem. Death is inevitable in a place as harsh as the Negev. Heat, thirst, predators, and exhaustion claim countless animals each year. Without scavengers to clean the land, diseases could spread rapidly through the fragile web of desert life. But vultures waste nothing. Within minutes of locating a carcass, they descend from the sky in widening circles. Their massive wings fold inward as they approach the ground, landing awkwardly among the rocks. Soon, powerful beaks begin their work, tearing through tough hides and tendons. What appears brutal is, in reality, an essential service. By recycling the remains of the dead, vultures return vital nutrients to the ecosystem, sustaining the very life that will one day sustain them again. Hours later, the desert wind rises once more. The birds take to the sky again, catching new thermals that carry them far above the cliffs and valleys of the Negev. From this height, the desert appears peaceful once more. However, the true complexity of life here is not always visible from above. Because some of the Negev's most remarkable survivors never take to the air. They hide beneath stones, within narrow crevices, and in the cool darkness deep within the desert ground. When night finally spreads over the desert, the Negev changes character once again. The scorching furnace of the day cools into a quiet and shadowy world. Temperatures drop rapidly, and a gentle breeze drifts through the rocky valleys. For many creatures, this is the moment they have been waiting for. The desert floor begins to move. Small legs emerge from cracks in the earth. Shapes crawl out from beneath stones that only hours earlier burned under the sun. Under the cover of darkness, an entire army of small hunters begins its nightly patrol. Among the most feared of these predators are scorpions. Hidden beneath rocks during the day, species like the deathstalker venture out once darkness falls. Their bodies are built to sense vibrations rather than rely on sight. Sensitive hairs along their legs detect the faint tremors created by insects walking across the sand. A beetle passes nearby, unaware of the danger. The scorpion freezes. Its pincers open slightly as the curved tail slowly rises above, the venomous stinger poised like an unsheathed dagger. Then the attack comes without warning. In a lightning-fast strike, the scorpion seizes its prey, delivering a precise injection of venom that quickly paralyzes the struggling insect. In the unforgiving desert, hesitation often means hunger. Efficiency is everything. However, the scorpion is not the only hunter that roams the Negev's nocturnal landscape. A blur of movement crosses the sand, long legs pumping with surprising speed. Despite the name, the camel spider is neither a true spider nor related to camels. Instead, it belongs to a strange group of arachnids known for their powerful jaws and relentless hunting behavior. Unlike scorpions, camel spiders rely less on venom and more on brute force. Their oversized mouthparts, called chelicerae, can crush insects, small reptiles, and even other arachnids. They are tireless hunters, capable of sprinting across the desert floor in pursuit of fleeing prey. A closer inspection of the rocks reveals another predator waiting patiently in the darkness. A delicate desert spider clings to the surface of a stone, its legs spread wide as it monitors the threads of an almost invisible web. The web trembles slightly, a sign that something has become entangled. Within seconds, the spider lunges forward, wrapping its victim in silk before delivering a venomous bite. Across the Negev, thousands of these small encounters unfold each night. Though small, these hunters form the foundation of the desert food chain. They control insect populations and provide vital meals for larger predators, from reptiles to birds and mammals. But not all their enemies come from above. Some glide silently across the sand itself. For in the deserts of the Middle East, reptiles have evolved some of the most remarkable survival strategies of all. When the desert sun rises high once more, a different group of survivors emerges to embrace the heat. Reptiles. Unlike mammals and birds, reptiles do not generate their own body heat. Instead, they depend entirely on environmental warmth to power their muscles and metabolism. In a place like the Negev, where sunlight is abundant and relentless, this strategy becomes a powerful advantage. The desert becomes their furnace. Among the most mysterious of these reptiles lies hidden just beneath the sand, the master of stillness, known as the horned viper. At first glance, nothing seems unusual about that stretch of desert ground. The wind has smoothed gentle ripples across the sand. Small pebbles rest where they fell months ago. But look closer. Two small horns rise from the surface like fragments of dry grass. The rest of the snake's body lies buried beneath the sand, leaving only its eyes and the horn-like scales above them exposed. This remarkable camouflage allows the viper to disappear almost completely into its surroundings. It waits. Ambush predators like the horned viper rely on patience rather than pursuit. A careless rodent or a wandering lizard is all it needs. Minutes pass, then the sand suddenly explodes. The viper strikes with terrifying speed, its hinged fangs injecting venom deep into its prey before the victim can even understand what has happened. Moments later, the snake begins the slow process of swallowing its meal whole. Moving across the desert requires a different kind of skill. Unlike most snakes, the horned viper often moves using a method known as sidewinding, lifting sections of its body and placing them forward in undulating arcs. This unusual movement reduces the amount of skin that touches the scorching sand, preventing overheating while allowing the snake to glide efficiently across loose dunes. But not all reptiles of the Negev hide from the sun. Some embrace it. Perched proudly atop a rock, warmed by hours of sunlight, is the vibrant Sinai agama. During the breeding season, males transform into flashes of color against the otherwise muted desert palette. Their bodies glow with intense shades of blue and orange, a dramatic signal meant to attract females and intimidate rivals. From its rocky vantage point, the agama scans the surrounding ground for movement. A beetle crawls between two stones. In an instant, the lizard lunges forward, capturing the insect before returning to its basking spot. The heat stored in the rock fuels its rapid bursts of speed, allowing it to hunt during the hottest hours of the day, when many predators remain hidden. Across the Negev, reptiles play an essential role in the ecosystem. They hunt insects, rodents, and smaller reptiles, and in turn become prey for birds of prey, foxes, and other desert hunters. However, even these formidable reptiles depend on another group of animals that silently shape life beneath the sand. Creatures that dig tunnels, store seeds, and emerge cautiously under the cover of darkness. Because in the desert, survival often begins underground. Beneath the desert surface lies a hidden network of tunnels. From above, the Negev appears calm and motionless under the blazing sun. But just beneath the sand, entire communities of small mammals are working tirelessly, digging, storing, reproducing, and quietly feeding the ecosystem around them. These creatures may be small, but they are the true engine of the desert. Among the most extraordinary is the jerboa. At first glance, the jerboa looks almost like a miniature kangaroo. Its hind legs are long and powerful. Its tail extends behind like a balancing pole, and its oversized ears capture even the faintest sounds of approaching danger. But the jerboa's most remarkable ability appears when it moves. When night falls and the temperature finally drops, the rodent cautiously emerges from its burrow. For several seconds it pauses, listening carefully to the silence around it. Predators could be anywhere. Satisfied that the path is clear, it begins to move. Instead of running, the jerboa hops across the sand in long elastic leaps. Each jump propels it several feet forward, allowing it to cover open ground quickly while confusing predators trying to predict its path. One moment it is here. The next, it has vanished into the darkness. Nearby, another species begins its nightly routine among the rocks, the resilient and adaptable spiny mouse. Unlike the jerboa, the spiny mouse spends much of its time moving across rocky terrain rather than open sand. Its coarse, bristle-like fur helps protect it from predators, while its sharp senses allow it to detect movement long before danger arrives. The mouse scurries among the stones, gathering seeds and fragments of desert plants. Every piece of food matters, because in the desert, abundance rarely lasts. A few meters away, a third rodent frantically digs into the loose soil. The Jerd is an expert engineer. Using powerful forelimbs and teeth, it builds complex burrow systems beneath the sand. Networks of tunnels that can extend several meters and include multiple chambers. Some rooms serve as sleeping quarters, others become storage vaults filled with carefully collected seeds. These underground shelters provide protection not only from predators, but also from the brutal temperature shifts of the desert. While the surface bakes under the sun, the burrow remains cool and stable. However, despite their caution, rodents can never fully escape the dangers above. Their tracks reveal their movements. Their scent travels through the night air, and for nearly every predator in the Negev, from foxes to snakes, owls to wild cats, these small mammals are the foundation of survival. Without rodents, the desert food chain would collapse. But even the desert itself plays a role in shaping their lives. Because in the Negev, the seasons bring changes that ripple through every burrow, valley, and rocky ridge. Night in the Negev is not a time of rest. It is a smena of shift. As the sun disappears behind the jagged ridges of the desert, the heat begins to loosen its grip on the land. The ground slowly releases the warmth it absorbed during the day, and the temperature drops with surprising speed. What was once an oven becomes something closer to a cool and silent wilderness. For many animals, this is the safest time to move. Along valleys and dry riverbeds, the shadows begin to stir. The desert's nocturnal ecosystem awakens, a hidden world that thrives precisely because darkness offers protection from the brutal heat of the day. High above the desert ground, a silent form glides through the night air. The wide wings of the barn owl drift almost soundlessly over the valley. Unlike most birds, the barn owl's feathers are specially adapted to muffle the turbulence of flight. The result is near-perfect silence. Below, somewhere in the darkness, a rodent moves. The owl cannot see it clearly. Instead, it listens. Its heart-shaped face acts like a parabolic dish, channeling faint sounds into highly sensitive ears hidden beneath its feathers. Even the whisper of a mouse stepping on dry sand can be detected from dozens of meters away. The owl tilts slightly in the air, triangulating the sound. Then it dives. The strike is fast and precise. Curved talons extend forward, briefly disappearing into the darkness, before the owl rises again with its prize. But the sky over the Negev holds more than just birds. Small silhouettes dart erratically through the air, twisting and looping in unpredictable patterns. These are bats, tireless insect hunters that patrol the night in search of moths, beetles, and mosquitoes. One of them, the tiny Kuhl's pipistrelle, weighs less than 10 grams, yet it navigates the desert darkness with astonishing precision, using echolocation, emitting high-frequency calls that bounce off surrounding objects and return as detailed echoes. To human ears, the desert night may sound silent, but to a bat, it is full of acoustic information, a constant stream of echoes that maps every insect and obstacle in the air. On the ground, another hunter emerges from the shadows. The cautious figure of a desert fox moves along the edge of a dry wadi, its nose low to the ground as it follows scent trails left by rodents. Every few steps, it pauses, ears twitching at distant sounds. A sudden rustle. The fox leaps. Dust scatters as it digs frantically into the sand, trying to capture the animal hiding beneath the surface. Across the Negev, hundreds of these hunts unfold each night. Owls dropping from the sky. Bats weaving through the darkness. Foxes stalking the silent valleys. The desert may seem empty during the day, but after sunset it becomes a living web of predators and prey. A delicate system that operates almost entirely in the dark. Yet even this carefully balanced world cannot escape the rhythms of a greater force. Because in the Negev, survival also depends on the rare and unpredictable arrival of rain. Twice a year, the skies over the Negev become part of one of Earth's greatest journeys. The desert itself may seem remote and unforgiving, but geographically it lies at a crossroads between continents. Narrow land bridges connect Africa, Asia, and Europe through this small strip of the Middle East, and for millions of birds, it becomes an essential corridor during migration. Biologists often describe Israel as a natural aerial funnel. To the west lies the vast barrier of the Mediterranean Sea. To the east, the rugged mountains and deserts of Arabia stretch endlessly toward the horizon. For large birds that depend on rising thermals rather than constant flapping, crossing large bodies of water is dangerous and exhausting, so instead, they pass through here. Every spring and autumn, massive flocks flow through the region, following ancient routes etched into instinct long before modern borders existed. Among the most striking travelers are the imposing white storks. With wings that can span more than 2 meters, these birds travel thousands of kilometers between European breeding grounds and African wintering habitats. During migration, they gather in vast swirling flocks that glide across the sky like living clouds. As the sun heats the desert ground, thermals rise again from the rocky landscape. The storks circle upward within these invisible columns of air, climbing higher and higher without expending much energy. Then, once they reach sufficient altitude, they glide forward toward the next thermal. It is a method of travel perfected over millennia, a rhythm of ascent and glide repeated countless times across continents. Sharing the sky with the storks are powerful birds of prey. The formidable steppe eagle is among them, soaring silently over the desert valleys. These eagles migrate between the open plains of Central Asia and the warmer climates of Africa, passing directly through the Middle East along the way. From high above, they watch the desert below with sharp, predatory eyes. Although migration is their primary mission, any opportunity for an easy meal is rarely ignored. Further north, another great traveler appears, the elegant, common crane. Their calls echo across the sky long before they are visible, a deep and resonant chorus heard over kilometers. Flying in broad V-shaped formations, the cranes coordinate their flight to reduce air resistance, allowing the entire flock to conserve precious energy. For these birds, the journey can span thousands of kilometers, and the Negev is just one chapter of that epic journey. However, for a brief moment each year, this desert becomes an aerial highway filled with wings, a passage that connects distant ecosystems across half the planet. In time, the flocks fade into the horizon. The sky becomes still once more, but life continues here in the desert, firmly rooted among the rocks, dunes, and valleys that have shaped its inhabitants for thousands of years. Because migration may bring visitors, but survival belongs to those who call the Negev home. In the Negev, water is more than a resource. It is an event. For most of the year, the desert appears completely dry. Riverbeds lie empty under the sun, their cracked surfaces showing no sign that water has ever flowed there. Dust gathers in the valleys, and the wind moves freely across the barren terrain. Yet hidden within this vast dryness are rare places where water still finds a way to appear. Some emerge from deep underground springs, where ancient aquifers slowly release moisture through fractures in the rock. Others arrive suddenly and violently when seasonal rains fall on distant mountains. When that happens, the transformation can be dramatic. A dry wadi, the desert's natural channel, may remain silent for months or even years. Then, without warning, a wall of muddy water rushes through the canyon as distant storms send flash floods racing across the landscape. For a brief moment, the desert flows again. After the floodwaters pass, small pools remain trapped among the rocks. The mud settles, the ground softens, and in a place where life is normally scattered and cautious, animals begin to gather. These rare water sources become temporary centers of activity. Among the first to arrive are the confident Nubian ibex. Descending carefully from their cliffside refuges, the ibex approach the water with alert caution. Their ears rotate constantly, scanning the silent valley for any sign of danger. They drink quickly, even in moments of abundance. Desert animals rarely stay long. Soon, smaller creatures appear along the edges of the pool. Rodents emerge from nearby burrows, cautiously approaching the damp ground where seeds and insects have accumulated. Birds flutter down from nearby shrubs, splashing briefly before retreating to the safety of surrounding rocks. For many species, these pools offer more than just drinking water. They create small ecosystems that can last for weeks. Insects reproduce in the shallow water. Plants sprout quickly in the moist soil, taking advantage of the brief window of opportunity before the desert reclaims the land. Even predators recognize the importance of these rare oases. Hidden among the rocks, a fox watches the gathered animals in patient silence. Water attracts life, and where prey gathers, hunters inevitably follow. Yet the desert never allows such abundance to last forever. Day after day, the sun returns to its relentless work. Heat rises from the ground, slowly shrinking the pool until only damp mud remains. Eventually, even that disappears. The valley returns to silence, but the memory of water remains in the soil, in the seeds waiting beneath the surface, and in the instincts of the animals that will return the next time the desert briefly comes alive. Because in the Negev, survival often depends on patience and on the rare moments when the desert chooses to share its most precious gift. The desert keeps a strange calendar. For most of the year it whispers in dust and wind, its creatures living on the edge of scarcity. Then, on rare occasions, the sky remembers it exists. A storm arrives, brief and violent, pouring rain onto rock and sand. For a few hours, the desert drinks deeply, and then something remarkable happens. Rain in arid lands is less an event than a trigger. Hidden beneath the surface, seeds have been waiting, sometimes for years. Many desert plants produce seeds coated with chemical inhibitors that prevent germination until sufficient moisture washes them away. The moment rain soaks the soil, those dormant seeds awaken. Within days, the landscape transforms. Small shoots push through the sand. Delicate flowers bloom in bursts of color, purple, yellow, and white, scattered across hills that days before seemed lifeless. These blooms work quickly. Their entire life cycle can unfold in just a few weeks. Germinate, flower, produce seeds, die. Speed is survival here. Where flowers appear, insects follow. Beetles, ants, and solitary desert bees emerge from cracks in the ground or from pupae buried beneath the soil. Many insect species synchronize their development with rainfall cycles. Moisture softens the ground, allowing larvae to hatch and rise to the surface. For a brief period, the desert air hums with activity. Termite colonies expand their search for food. Grasshoppers hatch in large numbers. Moths rise from hidden cocoons to feed on nectar under the cool evening sky. For predators, this sudden surge of life is an opportunity. Rodents respond quickly to abundance. Gerbils and spiny mice find seeds scattered in the sand and insects crawling among the flowers. Food that was scarce just weeks before becomes plentiful. Females that normally produce a single litter can now raise several in rapid succession. The rodent population begins to increase. Burrows that once housed a few individuals fill with new life, tiny offspring growing rapidly thanks to the sudden wealth of food. In years of good rainfall, rodent numbers can multiply several times in a single season. But the desert economy always balances itself. As rodents become more numerous, predators arrive to take advantage. Foxes patrol the blooming plains at night, ears alert to movement beneath the plants. Owls glide silently overhead, their eyes scanning the ground below. Snakes return to hunting grounds, now filled with prey. Even daytime predators benefit. Birds of prey circle above the flowering desert, watching rodents that venture too far from cover. For a few short weeks, the desert feels almost crowded. Flowers sway in the wind, insects buzz among the blooms, rodents dart between burrow entrances. Predators hunt in skies and shadows. Life pulses through a landscape that seemed barren only days before. Then, as quickly as it began, the transformation fades. Flowers wither under the returning sun. Insects complete their brief life cycles. Seeds fall back to the ground, where they may wait years for the next rain. Rodent populations gradually decline as food once again becomes scarce. Yet nothing here is wasted. Seeds lie dormant. Insects leave eggs hidden in the soil. Burrows remain ready beneath the sand. The desert does not forget the rain. It simply waits for the sky to remember it again. Deserts are not empty places. They are laboratories of survival. Every creature here is an experiment refined over thousands of generations, shaped by heat, thirst, and the constant risk of exposure. Life in such an environment demands efficiency. Nothing can be wasted. Not water, not energy, not movement. Water, above all, is the most valuable currency of the desert. Many animals survive without ever drinking directly. Instead, they extract moisture from their food. Seeds, insects, and plant tissues contain small amounts of water, and desert animals have evolved remarkable ways to retain every drop. Rodents, such as gerbils, produce extremely concentrated urine and very dry feces, losing minimal moisture through waste. Their kidneys are specialized filtration systems, recovering water before it leaves the body. Even breathing is efficient. In their nasal passages, cool membranes condense moisture from exhaled air, returning it to the bloodstream. Some reptiles go even further. Many snakes and lizards obtain nearly all their water from prey. Their bodies tolerate mild dehydration that would be dangerous for most mammals. Temperature presents a second challenge. Desert heat can push surface temperatures above 50 degrees Celsius during the day, while nights can drop sharply toward the cold. Animals must navigate both extremes. Reptiles manage this through behavioral thermoregulation. Their bodies do not produce large amounts of internal heat, so they control temperature by moving between sun and shade. A lizard may warm itself on a rock in the morning and then retreat beneath a shrub when the ground becomes dangerously hot. Mammals rely on different strategies. Some species allow their body temperature to rise slightly during the day, reducing the need to sweat and conserving precious water. Others avoid daytime heat altogether. Nocturnal behavior is perhaps the most effective survival strategy in the desert. As the sun sets and the sand cools, the ecosystem awakens. Rodents emerge from their burrows. Foxes begin their patrols. Bats sweep across the sky hunting insects. The drop in temperature allows animals to move and forage without the constant threat of overheating. By remaining active at night, these species avoid both thermal stress and water loss. Darkness becomes an ally. Visibility in the open desert also carries risk. With few trees or tall grasses, animals must rely on camouflage to avoid detection. Many desert species wear the colors of the landscape itself. Sandy browns, pale grays, and muted reds reflect the tones of rock and dust. A horned viper buried beneath the sand is nearly invisible until it moves. Lizards flatten their bodies against stone surfaces, blending with patterns of light and shadow. Even birds take part in this silent disguise. Desert larks and wheatears have plumage that reflects the ground beneath them, making them difficult for predators to detect. Camouflage works both ways. Prey use it to hide, while predators use it to approach unseen. Together, these adaptations form a delicate balance. Each animal must conserve water, control heat, avoid predators, and still find enough food to survive. The desert rewards those who move carefully, waste nothing, and adapt quickly. And in this demanding landscape, evolution has produced some of the most finely tuned survival strategies on Earth. The desert may appear sparse at first glance, bare rock, drifting sand, scattered shrubs. Yet beneath that quiet surface lies a tightly interwoven system of energy and survival. Every creature here is connected to another. Every life depends on the life before it. At the base of this network are the desert's toughest survivors. Plants, shrubs, grasses, and hardy desert flowers capture sunlight and convert it into energy through photosynthesis, the process by which plants transform light, carbon dioxide, and water into sugars that fuel life. In a landscape where water is scarce, many plants grow slowly, storing nutrients and moisture in thick leaves or deep roots that reach far below the surface. These plants form the foundation of the desert food web. They feed the smallest consumers, insects. After rare rains, the desert briefly bursts with insect life. Beetles crawl across the sand. Grasshoppers chew fresh shoots. Ant colonies gather seeds scattered across the ground. Even in dry seasons, insects persist by feeding on tough vegetation, dead plant material, or stored seeds. For a predator, these tiny creatures represent moving packets of energy. Reptiles and small mammals are among the first hunters to benefit. Lizards catch beetles and crickets as they dart across hot rocks. Spiders and scorpions lie in wait beneath stones, sensing vibrations in the sand. But the most important middle players of the desert are its rodents. Gerbils, jerboas, and spiny mice feed on seeds, plant roots, and insects. Their burrows spread beneath the desert floor like underground cities. At night, they emerge to forage, gathering food and carrying it back to hidden chambers. These rodents are the engines of the ecosystem. Their populations sustain nearly all desert predators. Foxes patrol the wadis, listening for movement beneath the sand. Owls glide silently above, with hearing sharp enough to detect the faint scratch of a mouse below the surface. Higher up the chain, larger predators appear. The Arabian wolf roams vast territories, following herds and scavenging when the opportunity arises. Although rodents and small prey form part of its diet, wolves also hunt animals such as ibex or feed on carrion left by other predators. Nothing in the desert is wasted. When an animal dies, the final guardians of the ecosystem arrive from the sky. Vultures circle high above the landscape, scanning the ground with extraordinary vision. A carcass that might rot elsewhere becomes a vital resource here. Griffon vultures descend first, tearing through thick hides. Egyptian vultures follow, picking through the remains for smaller pieces. Even insects and microbes play their part, breaking down what remains and returning nutrients to the soil. Those nutrients feed the plants once more, and so the cycle continues. Energy flows upward through this fragile ladder of life, from sunlight captured by plants, to insects, to rodents, to predators, and finally back to the earth. Each level supports the next. In the desert, survival is not just about strength or speed. It is about connection. Every creature, no matter how small, helps keep the entire system alive. Time behaves differently in deserts. Human lives pass like sparks, but the land beneath the Negev moves according to a much slower clock, one measured not in years, but in millions. The Negev Desert, which covers more than half of modern-day Israel, is the product of a deep geological history. Long before wolves crossed its valleys or ibex climbed its cliffs, this land lay beneath ancient seas. Approximately 100 million years ago, during the age of the dinosaurs, much of the region was submerged under a shallow tropical ocean. Layers of limestone, chalk, and sandstone slowly accumulated on the seabed. Tiny marine organisms died and settled, forming thick strata of sediment that hardened into rock. Then, the Earth's crust began to shift. Tectonic forces, those immense pressures generated by moving plates beneath the surface, gradually lifted parts of the seabed. The land rose, the sea retreated, and the ancient ocean floor became desert. But the story was far from over. Wind, rain, and temperature began their slow work of sculpting the landscape. In deserts, erosion operates with deceptive patience. Daytime heat expands rock. Nighttime cold contracts it. Over thousands of cycles, cracks widen and stone fractures. Gravity does the rest. The result is the strange terrain that defines the Negev today. Among its most extraordinary features are the enormous erosion craters known as maktashim. These formations exist almost nowhere else on Earth. The largest and most famous is Negev Desert. Seen from above, it appears as a giant wound in the desert crust, 40 kilometers long and up to 10 kilometers wide. But unlike volcanic craters formed by explosions, Negev Desert was carved entirely by erosion. Its creation began when layers of softer rock lay beneath harder limestone caps. Over millions of years, water seeped through cracks, gradually eroding the softer material below. Eventually, the upper rock collapsed inward, revealing the colorful layers beneath. Then, wind and flash floods widened the basin, carrying sediment away grain by grain. Today, the crater walls expose geological history like pages in an open book. Reds, yellows, and pale whites reveal sediments deposited across very different ages of the Earth's past. And yet, erosion continues even now. Occasional desert storms send torrents of water through dry riverbeds known as wadis. Although rain here is rare, when it arrives, it can transform quiet valleys into violent rivers within minutes. These flash floods tear at canyon walls and drag stones downstream, slowly reshaping the desert floor. Given enough time, tens of thousands, even millions of years, the landscape will change again. Mountains will wear down, valleys will deepen. The desert will continue rewriting itself. For the animals that live here, these cliffs and craters are simply home. But in truth, they are temporary sculptures, monuments carved by patience, gravity, and the silent persistence of the wind. In the Negev Desert, survival is never guaranteed. Each sunrise brings heat that can scorch exposed ground to over 40 degrees Celsius. Each night drags temperatures sharply downward, turning the same terrain cold and unforgiving. Water is scarce. Vegetation is limited. Food appears and disappears with the seasons. By almost any measure, this should be a hostile landscape for life. And yet, life persists. Across the rocky plains and hidden valleys of the Negev, hundreds of species have learned not only to endure these conditions, but to depend on them. Evolution has spent thousands of years refining their bodies, shaping behaviors, and creating strategies that turn adversity into opportunity. A faint movement flickers along a ridge. The silhouette of a desert fox appears against the pale horizon, its oversized ears capturing the slightest whisper beneath the stones. In a terrain where prey is scarce, hearing becomes a powerful weapon. The fox tilts its head, listening with surgical precision before launching itself toward the ground. Beneath the rocks, a rodent had believed itself to be safe. Moments like this unfold every night across the desert floor. Silent dramas that sustain the fragile balance of the ecosystem. High above the valleys, another survivor moves with remarkable confidence. A herd of Nubian ibex climbs the nearly vertical walls of a canyon, their hooves gripping ledges barely wider than a coin. For a predator below, these cliffs are impossible barriers. For the ibex, they are highways. Even the youngest members of the herd begin to practice these climbs just weeks after being born, learning the geography of safety, one careful step at a time. The desert does not reward hesitation, but survival here is not limited to the obvious. Beneath a thin layer of sand, a scorpion waits motionless in the darkness of its burrow. Hours can pass without movement, energy is precious, and wasting it can mean death. The scorpion hunts only when necessary, striking with lightning speed when vibrations reveal a passing prey. Above, riding invisible columns of heated air, vast wings spread against the sky. The griffon vulture glides over the desert without a single flap, conserving strength while scanning the land below for signs of death. In ecosystems where every resource is precious, even decay becomes nourishment. Nothing is wasted. Nothing disappears without feeding something else. Plants cling to the rocky ground with roots that reach hidden moisture deep below. Insects synchronize their life cycles with the brief windows when flowers bloom. Rodents gather seeds in underground chambers. Predators follow the rhythms of their prey. Together, these strategies form a vast and intricate web of survival. Seen from afar, the Negev may appear silent and barren. But closer observation reveals a different truth. Life here is not fragile, it is resilient. Every creature in this desert carries within itself a silent triumph of adaptation, a living testament to the extraordinary persistence of life in one of the harshest landscapes on Earth. For thousands of years, the Negev Desert has remained a land defined by silence, distance, and endurance. Winds shape the ridges, rare rains carve the valleys. Animals follow ancient rhythms written in the landscape long before human memory. Yet, even in places that seem timeless, change is inevitable. Across today's Negev, human presence is becoming increasingly visible. Roads stretch across the plains, connecting distant communities that were once isolated among vast expanses of wilderness. Towns rise where caravans once briefly stopped along trade routes that connected Arabia, Africa, and the Mediterranean world. Seen from above, the desert still appears endless, but slowly, the edges of human activity expand. In some areas, agriculture now advances into lands that once only supported scattered shrubs and resilient desert grasses. Using advanced irrigation systems, farmers extract precious water from underground aquifers, making crops grow from soils that for centuries knew only drought. These achievements reveal something remarkable about human ingenuity, but they also raise new questions. Water, the desert's most valuable resource, exists here in a delicate balance. Aquifers that took thousands of years to fill can be depleted much more quickly if extraction exceeds natural recharge. Even subtle changes in groundwater levels can reshape the fragile ecosystems that depend on hidden springs. Wildlife must adapt once again. Along newly built roads, animal movements become more cautious. The Arabian wolf, already a master of survival in harsh terrain, now roams territories increasingly shared with human settlements. These wolves adjust their hunting patterns, often becoming more nocturnal to avoid encounters. High above, another ancient traveler continues its journey through the skies. Each year, vast flocks of migratory birds pass through this narrow corridor between continents. The Negev lies directly beneath one of the most important aerial highways on Earth, a migratory route used by millions of birds moving between Europe, Asia, and Africa. Among them rise the great silhouettes of the griffon vulture, riding thermals that ascend from the sun-baked desert floor. Their journey has followed the same invisible paths for millennia. Yet, even these ancient routes now pass over landscapes increasingly shaped by human decisions. Even so, the Negev remains a place of extraordinary resilience. Many conservation efforts now seek to protect the delicate balance between development and wilderness. preserving habitats where desert species can continue their silent struggle for survival. The future of the Negev will not be written by nature alone. It will emerge from the interaction between two powerful forces, one ancient and patient, the other inventive and restless. And somewhere between stone, wind, and human ambition, the desert will continue to evolve just as it always has. For millions of years, the Negev Desert has evolved through forces far beyond human control. Wind carved its craters, floods shaped its valleys, heat and time sculpted its endless ridges of stone. Life slowly adapted to this unforgiving world. Yet, in the span of just a few decades, a new force has begun to alter the balance. Cities continue to expand along the edges of the desert. Roads penetrate deeper into once isolated valleys, bringing light, sound, and constant movement to landscapes that were once defined by silence. For many animals, even small disturbances can change ancient patterns of migration, hunting, and shelter. In several regions of the Negev, large areas are also used as military training grounds. Tanks and aircraft now cross terrains where wolves once hunted undisturbed and ibex moved freely along the cliffs. At the same time, efforts to protect the desert are growing. Protected landscapes such as Maktesh Ramon have become important conservation areas where wildlife and geological history are preserved together. Scientists and conservationists monitor fragile ecosystems, studying how desert species respond to a changing environment. These efforts reflect a growing understanding. Deserts are often mistaken for empty lands, vast spaces waiting to be used. But the Negev reveals a different truth. Beneath its silent surface lies a complex web of life, carefully balanced between scarcity and survival. The Negev has endured millions of years of heat, drought, and geological upheaval. But its greatest challenge may not come from nature. It may come from us,